Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Zon Academy. I'm so happy today to have Jimmy Stegall here with us, and he's going to be speaking to us about next level removable prosthetics. And Jimmy, I want to just let you know that we have a tremendous audience today. Probably the biggest audience we've had in a very long time. I think this is going to beat your record from October. So happy that you're joining us again. And I'm so happy to have all of you attendees out there. So thank you so much for trusting your education with us. I just want to let you all know that I do have some poll questions that we derived with Jimmy. So I'm going to be launching two of those before we even get started. And once I turn this over to Jimmy. And at the end, we'll also be doing a couple of polls and Jimmy will be taking Q&A at that time. So if you have any questions for him, please type them in at the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Also, our friends at Pac-Dent, they have an unbelievable promotion for you today. So pay attention to that. We'll be talking about it a little bit later. And I believe Jimmy has a slide that, labels everything out for you. So if you're interested in that promotion, there'll be a poll out there that you can answer yes or no. And I'll be calling you on that. And my name is Fran and I am the education manager, but I believe most of you know that already. So I'm going to turn this over to Jimmy and then I'll start launching those questions. Here you go, Jimmy.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Good to be with you again, but no pressure, right? Big audience, all that stuff. You don't want to pressure me. So I'm I'm glad to be here. And everybody knows by now if you that I love talking about dentures and now partials and removable workflows and digital and all that. So pretty exciting. And when we think about digital, we think about pain points and history has an impact on what we believe and think and feel. And, when I started in the lab in 1979, it looked kind of like this. And, we did certain things certain ways. And in dental offices, I understand there's probably some dentists in the audience today too. I, I remember going in a dental office that had a belt driven handpiece. And, that has had an impact on what we believe and what we think and what we feel. But as digital has come along, we certainly, um, sorry, something is, I think the poll, there we go.
Yeah, it's probably because of me doing the polls, Jimmy. I'm
No worries.
almost done. I have one more to just do.
No worries. Let me just get back to sequence here. So in a lab world, this is what most of us know. And, you know, stone, wax, selecting teeth out of a drawer, carving, shaping, investing, boil out, processing, all those things, is how we've been making dentures for a long, long time. And it works. You can't argue that it doesn't work, and it's gotten better with injection processing and better acrylics. But in the end, it's still pretty much a lost wax technique, and it comes with all the variables. And it's just a high number of areas where things can go wrong. But we make it work, and the problem is finding people that have the skills to do these things, right? Somebody that knows what tooth to pick and where to put it, and somebody that can do all the festooning and shaping, and somebody that can do the processing. And, we just don't have that resource anymore. So finding people is a challenge. And so, you start looking for solutions. I'm growing. I've got five dentists that want to send me dentures, but I can't find, another technician to set those five dentures. So what do I do? And that's where digital comes in. And right now it is our current best solution for helping us with these workflows. So, again, when we look at the way we've been doing things, what are our, I call it pain points, right? Both on the lab and clinical side, our pain points might be fit. Do the digitals fit? Even with all the technologies of scanning in the dental office and scanning in the lab and digital process, I still see quite often in dental offices, the old traditional way. A dentist, still takes records the old way, and not many of the dentists out there like to do this because of all the nuances and problems that can happen in any of these steps. So, you know, you go back in history and you look about, okay, here's where we came from, here's how we used to do things. And I'll say it again and again, the old ways still work. There's nothing wrong with the old ways, but, you know, there are better ways today, and we have the tools and resources and materials. And, that's kind of what today is all about. So, I want to talk about those concerns. Does it fit? Is it durable? What does it look like? You know, I don't think technology is always the answer, but I think it's helped a lot. But I think not only with technology, you have to think about the materials. And I've learned pretty quick that having the right material in the right place, working together with the technology, is a solution. And that's been my mission, is to help folks understand it better and help folks get better at it. I still come in labs and train people. I still go in dental offices and train people, and do the lectures and education as often as I can. And that's why we're here. And yes, this is a Pac-Dent Rodin and Zahn sponsored seminar. So we're going to center this around this family of materials, which I use. And I have a little lab in the back of my dentist office, and I still do a little thing here and there, but I have history with these people and understand it. So, we do have this challenge, right? Number of labs are reducing, number of technicians, our revenues have been dropping, and we want to know why. And you can come up with all the answers of everything that's caused that. But, you know, talking about that is fine and help understand it, but I think finding a solution is the answer. So we have to think about changing our mind about things. But one of the things that I see in the market, both on the lab and in the clinician side, there's still a hesitancy of moving from traditional workflows over to digital. And I ask the question, why? Why do we hesitate? Why are we on the fence about doing it? And most of it is because of something we hear or maybe an experience. For example, if a dentist, jumped on board and tried a digital denture 7, 8 years ago, there's a good chance that they had a bad experience, and that may form an opinion in their mind that says, "Hey, I don't ever want to do a digital denture. They're not good. They don't look good. They don't fit good." And the reality is, there's been tons of advancement. And my opinion still today is that if you are unhappy with the digital denture today, then you're either using the wrong material or you're using it improperly or not processing it properly, because end result is we have FDA university led validations on these newer materials and processes that certainly make it work. So these are the key points, right, that we worry about. Is it going to fit? Is it going to stay in? And the answer is yes. Durability is a key point, right? There's nothing as strong as a traditional old denture. Well, it's just not the case anymore. We have the strength that we want and need. And I think we pretty much have the aesthetics, and we have multiple options within, all these parameters of what we're doing. And I think that Rodin, that Pac-Dent has done a good job of putting together an environment, a family, an ecosystem, if you will, of materials and processes, and worked with some of the technologies that we're very comfortable with. So, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why we want to go digital, and they're the reasons, and both on the clinical side and the lab side. And for the dentist in the audience, look, we know that this is not a fun thing to do. The number of appointments, the impressions are hard, the bites are hard, and digital answers that. We throw in a digital workflow in the denture partial process, we're going to make things better. And the biggest win for a clinical office is going to be the number of appointments. In traditional workflows, it's been proven so many times now, over 50, 70 years, that it takes 6 to 8 appointments to deliver a denture. In digital, I would, if I had a lab, a full service lab, I would guarantee there's no denture is going to take us more than 4 appointments. And we'll do some of them in 2, a lot of them in 3. And it's all about the workflows. It's not about what system or what material, it's all about the workflows. So I tell dentists and teach dentists all the time, look, reference denture number one, that's most of your patients, meaning that patient getting a new denture has an old denture. And we're going to use that old denture for our preliminary records. We're going to use the old denture for our wash impression and our bite. Then we're going to take that denture out of the mouth. We're going to scan it. We're going to send that to the lab. They're going to design the denture. They're going to print you out some sort of try-in. Maybe it's a monolithic prototype. Maybe it's a pink white denture. Whatever it is, it's our second appointment. We're going to try that in and check the fit. We're going to check the tooth position. We're going to do everything that we normally do. And if there's any adjustments, like in this case, the left side bite was off, tap, tap, grind, grind, take a new bite registration, scan that. The lab can take that scan, go back to the original design and make the corrections, and we can deliver on the third appointment. Number one most common workflow in the digital denture realm is the reference denture workflow. The guy that shows up that has no denture, we have to just throw in a little bit of analog work, right? We have to have a base plate and a bite rim, but we take our upper and lower impression and the bite with that. And then we treat that very much like a reference denture, right? We're going to scan that, design the prototype, and then make the changes in that trying appointment, which is now appointment 3. And then finally, we'll do the delivery on appointment 4. Very common, very efficient, works really well. Had plenty of lectures about that. And the third most common would be the immediates. And I tell dentists with scanners that if you have a scanner, you should be using it for all your immediates. This is one instance where we don't always automatically go to a wash impression because I want that scan data. And if you have teeth in the mouth, the scanners do better. But the big win with immediates, with intraoral scanners, is that we have the tooth data. And even when we virtually extract those teeth, we still have the tooth data so that when we do our setup, and I'll show you this case a little bit later. Okay, so, you know, clinical advantage is huge, and I encourage all my dentists to take a good look at that. And then it becomes down to what lab, what material. And we're going to talk about the rodent ecosystem because I think it is the most complete, most put together, most worked together system, chemistry, compatibility, all those things. And it works really, really well. And it's going to give us that speed, that efficiency. Um, think about inventory, material cost reduction. If we're using one system, our inventory is going to be less. And for the clinicians, again, reduced number of appointments, faster turnaround, all those things. So the ecosystem, our primary focus is going to be on denture base, what we do the teeth in, how we clean it, if we want to customize it, do we polish or glaze it, and then, ancillary, do I want to put a soft reline in it? So let's start with the rodent denture base. And these are the advantages of having an ecosystem, right? If somebody develops the chemistry for the denture base and the tooth, then likely they're going to develop it in a way where they're going to stick together really well, and they have. If anything ever goes wrong, you won't have to fight the fight of, well, it's not our fault. We may only make the base. They make the teeth. It's their fault. Efficiency. I'm going to show you the rodent denture workflow, and it is by far, hands down, astronomically more efficient than every other workflow out there from total time, including processing time. Training, if you have one component, right, or one family of components, it's going to be easy to train the next person because everybody's not learning something different. And inventory management becomes much easier. So let's talk about the denture base. The denture base, they're in their third generation. It says 2, but it's actually the third generation, and it is way improved over the first one by far. And it gives us the strength we need in all the categories. And so I don't have a problem with the strength numbers anymore. It is absolutely one of the strongest materials out there. It I like it to call it a balanced physical property, meaning it's rigid enough to not fracture very often, but yet, and I hate to use the term flexible, but flexible enough microscopically that it gives a little bit. I mean, you certainly can't feel this in your hand or in the mouth, but it's a balance. And when you're making resins for a living, you got to make your decision. Am I going to make it super, super strong and durable where it doesn't wear and it doesn't break easily? Well, that's going to be a more brittle product. Or I'm going to make it the other end, which is going to be, on the softest end of what a hard resin might be, which means it kind of bends more before it breaks, but that means it's also going to wear out faster. So you got to find that right balance, and they've done that with the rodent denture base. Very low water absorption. What that means is, it's going to look good 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road instead of getting pitted and worn. It is an FDA class 2, it's a permanent denture and validated with the FDA for that. And they have some good shades to pick from now. So it's got everything that you need in a denture base. So let me share a case with you. Reference denture case, give you an idea of what happened here. Worn down, teeth didn't look the way he wanted, but he wanted it done in a hurry and didn't want to be without his teeth. So that's the beauty of the reference denture workflow, because what we're going to do is take some records and use that denture to take our preliminary impressions. And we like to use a heavy bodied around the border and do those border molding movements, and then put the light bodied wash and go back in and do the same border molding movements again. We're going to trim all that up. We're going to trim the bite registration up, and then we're going to scan it. And then we're going to go in our software and design those dentures. And in most cases, we design this monolithic prototype. So appointment two, and again, he hadn't been without his teeth, right? So we just cleaned up his dentures and gave them back to him. So he walked out the door with his original set. Second appointment, we put the prototypes in and we check everything. This is our quote unquote try-in. And, tap, tap, grind, grind. If the bite's off, if it doesn't fit, we will take another wash. But in most cases with the reference denture, the fit is not the problem ever because it's easy to take that wash and the scanners do a great job of scanning that impression wash. So it's usually a bite or a midline or something, but only 2 or 3 out of 5 cases. Most of the time, these work really well. And you can just look at all the variables and see how we set these cases. You begin to understand why. But the bite was off. So, tap, grind, and take a new bite registration. That comes back to the lab. We, make those changes within the software, and then we print the denture, print the base, print the teeth. And so we're delivering on the third appointment. And happy patient, he got a better looking smile because we started showing a little bit more teeth, got his buccal quarters out where they need to be, and the fit was impeccable. And this guy's been wearing these almost a year, and they're still doing great. So let's talk about the workflow of the Rodin denture base 2. All right, we're going to talk about these categories. How we set the case up in 3Shape. Use exocad too, but 3Shape primarily for dentures. How thick? On average, 2.5 for uppers, 3.5. Doesn't mean I can't make them at 1.5 or 2, but those are what we shoot for. We'll talk about nesting and supporting, cleaning, when we smooth it, and how we bond teeth, and all those things. So my setup is like this most of the time. I set my teeth up now in either 3 or 4 segments. This happens to be 2 anterior segments. Most of the time, I do that in 1 6-unit. So 3 segments of teeth. And what I found is they print easier, faster. They distort less often, getting them off the printer as compared to a single arch of teeth. Easier to dry fit, get them adjusted, get them seated down, and certainly easier to tack and bond because I just don't have as much arch to worry about rocking and fitting. So seating time, tacking time, curing time, bonding time, a whole lot less when you got 3 segments versus 1. And it sounds a little bit illogical, but it's absolutely true. Thickness, I will shoot for 2.5 on uppers, 3.5 on lowers, but sometimes you can't make them that thick, but that's kind of what we shoot for. That gives us the maximum strength of these polymer resins we're printing. Bridge joints of those segments that we make, the default in 3Shape is like 80, 90, 70, and I take them all the way down to 70, 70, 60. And the reason is you don't need a strong joint to make a denture stronger. You just need the teeth to be bonded well. And when you bond the 3 segments in and you can't get them out, then you've got a pretty strong bond and you don't really worry about joint strength. And so there is no real validity saying if I have a big, massive joint in between every teeth that my denture is going to be stronger. I don't believe that because, number one, we just don't see a lot of breakage. Anything's breakable, but we just don't see a lot of breakage. The only risk to having these small joints in these 2 segments is when you drop them before you get them bonded to the denture base. But I would rather have the aesthetics, and so keep my joints pretty small. T-bars are a must with most all polymer printed dentures, including the Rodin. So I put them between the molars, between the bicuspids, touch the palates. They're maybe 2-3 millimeters in diameter. They don't have to be parallel or anything. They don't have to be round. They can be square. They need to be somewhere between 5 and 10 millimeters away from the tooth pockets, and that's about it. But they are a must to be on that during printing because they will distort. When I angle and support the Rodin, I'm going to angle it to the lingual, of course, and somewhere between 65 and 80 degrees. Why would I change? Well, 80 lets me get more dentures on a plate. 65, if I have a really deep palate and I can't get a support up to the buccal flange, I will tilt it a little more so I can. But somewhere between 65 and 80, 99.9% of the time. And you see I put the supports all the way around the border. You want to do that to fully support the denture, plus it makes finishing a breeze, right? I'm not putting a support somewhere that's going to mess up all the anatomy design I did on the denture or intaglio or the tooth pocket. So heel to platform, tilted lingually, 60 to 80 degrees, supports all the way around the border. Two segments, kind of the same thing, supports all the way around the edge. I tilt my posteriors around 30, 35 degrees and my anteriors around 40 or 45 degrees, always to the lingual. So let's go through the workflow a little bit. One of the cool things about the Rodin workflow is that we're going to cure, or I cure in the auto flash at 4,500 cycles. It gets warm, but it doesn't get super hot. So I'm not worried about heat distortion during curing like I am with other systems and other curing units. So that allows me to take those T-bars off before I cure it, which means I don't have to worry about after curing, cutting the T-bars off, and how am I going to get those little areas polished up. So we print them, we clean them, we dry them, then we take the T-bars off, we smooth everything down, we clean that again, and then we tack the teeth in. So I use the little micro wire cutters. I get as close as I can to the base, and I use the Wagner Aeroflex fine wheel. It's the black wheel. It comes in 3 and 5 millimeter thickness, and I usually use the 5 millimeter. In this particular case, for some reason, I'm using the extra fine, the red wheel, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. After I get the T-bars off of there, I'll start smoothing those borders. Remember, that's the only place really I have printer supports to smooth down is along the border. So it becomes really easy, other than, of course, those T-bar spots. But I knock those down pretty quick. Any other areas I might want to smooth, print lines, if I want to buff those out, I can do that now. But just remember, I'm doing this in the green stage. And so it's still sensitive to temperature. So the key is with these Wagner wheels, low RPMs. I set mine about 10,000 and very light touch. So low RPMs, light touch, but I can smooth down all the supports on a denture base in less than a couple of minutes. Now, it generates a lot of dust. And so, we got to take care of that. But you take that wheel, you go around that border, you feel it with your finger, and when it's smooth, then you're going to I just keep a little jar of IPA and, just brush the dust off. And then you want to make sure in this and all systems, before you put teeth into a base, that all pieces are completely dry. You don't want any IPA residue still on the surface, any water, anything. So I want to make sure they're really dry. Most of the time, after I clean them the second time, I just let them sit for about 10 minutes before I start putting teeth in. What I'm going to do is make sure visually that I've gotten all the dust off, I've smoothed all the supports, and you see now that denture is pretty much done other than being cured. So with the teeth, it's the same exact process. I'm using the superfine wheel, smoothing down those supports and getting them ready for bonding. And this is less than a minute. It doesn't take long. Again, my supports are maybe 4/10 contact width. So it's pretty simple to get that smoothed down. So posterior segment, anterior segment, I think I'm doing a lower, so you may see a lower segment, but it literally just takes a couple of minutes. I've gotten down the assembly process, right? This is after cleaning in the solvent, smoothing supports, uh, seating and tacking the teeth down to under 7 to 9 minutes. Pretty efficient. And this is where Rodin shines. The Rodin material, this glaze, right? And if you haven't heard me say it before, I like a glaze on a printed denture because we're painting it on in the green state. So I put it on the teeth and the base, but we're painting it on before the denture's cured, which means our glaze is not just sitting on the surface. Remember, this thing is only printed. It's not cured very well at all yet. So it soaks in only about 10 or 15 microns, but it does soak in. Then when we cure the denture, we are locking that glaze in. So it's a much better way to glaze a printed part as opposed to using some of the older materials we used to glaze dentures with. So this is an awesome product. But when Pac-Dent came out with this, the product guy called me, technical guy Ryan called me and said, "Look, we've also developed it and designed it to be a bonding agent." I said, "Oh, really? So I can put it in the pockets and bond my segments with it?" And he said, "Yes." So watch this little video from one of my posts. Uh, well, that was the end of it. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can try that again. Regardless, here's my sequence, right? Everything's cleaned and dried. I've already smoothed all the supports. I just take the bottle and I put a couple of drops into the tooth pockets. I'll seat the segment and I'll take my brush and all the excess that comes out around the margin. All I do is just wipe it up on the teeth and wipe it up on the gingiva. And then I tack that segment. Then I move to the next one and then to the next one. And then wherever I didn't get the glaze, I'll come back and paint glaze on and, tack that area in as well. And what I ended up with is a glazed denture. Sorry. Here we go. So you can see me doing it here. Again, drops in just right in the pockets, seat the segment, and I just take a wider brush. And so this is my bonding agent and my glaze. And I'm going to take a little more time and clean around that margin so the glaze doesn't puddle. But then I'm going to set the glaze and I go move to the next segment and repeat that process. And then I'll do the last segment and then do the rest of the denture base. I usually keep a pair of hemostats handy to help me hold the denture when I get to a point where I don't get my thumbprints all in the glaze. But the denture's been finished already, right? So there's not going to be any polishing. There's not going to be any, high shining. This is so different. Cleanup is easier. I love this workflow. It is fast. It's efficient. It works really well. Once you've got the teeth tapped in, the rest of the denture, you're done. Go to the curing unit. Yeah. And when it comes out of the curing unit, it's ready to go to the mouth. I mean, it's really, if you missed a spot, you could probably have to touch it up, but it's a wonderful workflow. So this is what I love most about the workflow within the Rodin denture-based system is using this for my tooth bonding and glaze in one go. Again, around 4,500 cycles in the auto flash, and then you see the other curing units there. But so it cures quickly. That's about a 7-minute cure. So this is how easy and fast that workflow works. So now the next component in the family would be Titan. This is what I use for my denture teeth 99% of the time. But because it's formulated to be used in a full arch workflow, I use it for all my implant provisionals. I've used it for the monolithic denture try-ins, and I've also used it in some occasions as an overlay on an SLM printed bar on an all-next final case. It is really a great product, and the numbers are there for a reason, and they've designed it to be that for us, that it's durable, not as rigid as some other products, so we have less chance of a brittle fracture. And I think that it looks good. I mean, the only limitation I hear people talk about, is that, it's only got, a few shades. But if you look at the shades, I mean, how many times are we outside of that? And I'm going to show you a solution for that anyway. So here's an immediate denture, right? And so in the immediate denture workflow, what I typically do, this is when I was working with the university, is that we would print the monolithic prototype. So printing it in Titan and painting a little pink on it is a solution for, immediate extraction day. So this guy was another patient who was in a hurry. He was concerned about, of course, aesthetics, and he wanted to upgrade. And the scans, the designing, all processes that we teach. But I encourage dentists everywhere all the time that in any digital denture workflow that you snap a couple photographs, high smile, relaxed lip. Just use a cell phone to do it and send that to the labs, because the labs can use that as an overlay. As you can see in these pictures, we can easily see that we didn't quite have the teeth in the right spot, right? Just showing way too much lower teeth. And we realize we need to, move that occlusal plane a little bit to get it more fitting his face. And that's what photographs do for us. So, and you can see the result we had. And the result is great, showed the right amount of teeth, really changed this guy's life. Again, this one's about 6 months old, has no problems, fit well. And that's the monolithic was Titan. The final was Rodin denture base 2 and Titan teeth. And then almost all of my implant cases I work on, I use Titan for provisionals, but sometimes occasionally, like this one, be a final. But I love this stuff. It has not only the strength, but also the forgiveness, I call it, of not being easy to fracture. But it's just a SLM design bar with an overlay. and then the locator denture, you know, also another great result. Just a couple of uses that kind of my go-to for Titan. All right. So let's talk about, we talked about denture base, the tooth material. Let's talk about, now, and let me say this about the tooth material before I leave. There are cases, maybe like this one, where um, I'm not getting the aesthetics I want out of that printed tooth. That is the one time that I think about not printing teeth. If I am opposing something different, in this case I wasn't, so it wasn't an issue, but if I'm ever opposing something different, like if this upper was going to be, a printed Titan tooth and the lower was going to be natural teeth or say a zirconia bridge, I would probably not print those teeth. In those cases, anytime I want to pose something different, I'm probably going to mill the teeth and put that into a printed base. And that's only because your milled restorations that are already multi-layer, embedded in the puck are just going to blend better, match a little better. And the shades just have a better match to other things. But that's my only caveat for printing teeth is what I'm opposing something different. All right. So what are we using to support? Well, we've all used IPA, right? And everybody uses IPA, and we know, the nuances about it. You can't ship it normally, and you can't store it normally, and fire hazard and the smell. And it has its nuances, but it works. 99% IPA is kind of the standard. Well, um, if you use it improperly, your dentures could have white spots. If you want to drop your Titan or any other ceramic fill tooth resin into IPA, it's going to be chalky. So we have to clean those differently, right? If we're using IPA. Well, Rodin has this universal cleaner that is not alcohol based. It's a some sort of butyl base. So no flammability, no smell. Um, not unlike alcohol, you can use it multiple times. Even when it's dirty, it works really well. Works on all the resin, and it doesn't frost up our ceramic filled printed resins. So it really is a simple process, right? It's a universal cleanser. And this is what I hated about Titan is that when I cleaned them, I had to do it with a toothbrush and spray or a damp towel. Now, using the universal cleanser, I just drop it right in the ultrasonic for 1 minute, take it out, brush off any excess. And if I still see some, I might put it back in there for another minute. But at that point, I got no frosting and it's clean and it's great. And it works on the denture base too. And the material in the little jar that's going in the ultrasonic might look a little cloudy, or in the case of denture base, a little pink, but doesn't matter. I can use it 4 to 6 times. Somebody told me once that they used theirs up to 10 times and still didn't see any notable drop in cleansability. So it's more expensive than IPA. I think somewhere around $60 a gallon, but if you use it 3 times, it certainly doesn't take long to pay for itself and becomes cheaper than using IPA. So I love it. Use it all the time. Now, if I have a Rodin denture base and I printed in A2, but we really would need it to be A3 or A4. That's when I get out the palette kit. The palette kit is one of the best printed resin stain kits out there, simply because it's got multiple options for my pinks and my purples for the gingiva, and it's got gingiva base shades. A, B, C, and D, and then some browns and some grays and some blues, some whites, and just about everything you would need to paint on. And it is a permanent composite, so it's pretty easy to use. If I'm in a hurry or I just need like this. I think this is a try-in denture that needed to get some pink on it. So got out a few of the different tints of pinks and purples and tried to do as best I could. You've heard me say it before. I'm the lab's most okayest dental technician, but this takes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how deep you want to get into this kit. But in this case, I went back later and even customized the teeth a little bit more, gave them a little more translucency on the incisal edge. Just trying to make an immediate denture look a little better for the patient, because I know they're going to be wearing it for a couple of months. So I love the palette kit, and I got to give kudos to Pac-Dent on this. They created this manual, and you talk about a soup to nuts, how to use the stains and tints. It's in this book. So I highly encourage you to scan this QR code and get that guide. It's a quarter, half-inch thick book, and it's got it on how to use it on everything, and what colors to add, and it's well done. So the last supporting product would be the Soft Reline kit because the question I get all the time, how can I get a soft liner to stick to this printed resin? And it's been known that some of the soft liners we've used in the past don't stick very well to printed materials. This one does, and it was developed for that. But like most things, if you just follow the rules, you won't have any issues. So it's pretty simple. Clean it well. So, we'll take, scrub it out with some alcohol or something, maybe do a little bevel, but I don't like to cut on the patient's denture if it's an older denture. So what I'll just then take a Scotch-Brite and just kind of Scotch-Brite the inside of the denture a little bit. Put the primer on. This is the important. You want a good, decent coat of primer, and you need to let it dry a solid 2 minutes. I'll let it sit there 5 minutes. Then we put the soft liner in, and if it's chair side, you go straight to the mouth and give it 5 minutes to set, or if you're doing it on a model, same 5 minutes. But once it's done, it won't peel out. It's hard to get out of there after that, and very comfortable, very fast, very easy to use. So that's the whole system, right? The Rodin ecosystem is denture based, Titan. You could use sculpture for the teeth as well. The N2F glaze, the palette kit, the cleaning material, soft reline, and everything's compatible. And it just makes it easy for us. And Fran mentioned this earlier. They sent me this morning, and I think it's fantastic. I'm about to see if they'll let me order two of these kits. Look, you know, call your Zon rep, order one bottle of Titan, email the invoice to that email address, freegoods@pacdent.com, and you will get a free bottle of denture base and 1 kilogram. That's a liter bottle, a soft reline kit, that glaze, and then also a sample of the cleaner. And that's the best thing I've seen them do in a very, very long time. It looks like it's going to be valid for a couple of weeks only. I highly encourage you order that Titan to do that.
Yeah, I
Is there
believe
something else
it's
you want to say?
like the 21st now today to February 4th, I believe. So
Yeah.
it does give you a couple of weeks. And if you're interested, there is a poll question that's going to come up. And all you need to do is just say yes on that. And I'll give you a call once I get my list tomorrow and we can discuss it over the phone. It'll be me that'll be calling you. So
My hat's off to Pac-Dent for doing this today, because exactly what we're talking about here is taking a whole ecosystem and having success with it. And what a great way to get started or give it a try. And if you don't like the denture base, you don't like the workflow, you're still using some of the best tooth resin out there. This Titan, I use it for crown and bridge temps in my dentist office. Right, showed them how to use the Asiga crown kit to print a 6 unit temporary bridge out of Titan in 16 minutes. Right, use it for all my all on X temps. Full monolithic tri dentures, and of course denture teeth right and left. So it's kind of my go-to resin in this environment now, and it's awesome. So here's the next thing, and you know, I want to finish with this and flexible partials. It, I remember the first one I saw, I don't know, 20 something years ago. And this stuff will never make it. But yet my mom's wearing a flexible partial she's been wearing for almost 18 years. And it just, it's most of them in the beginning were injection. Then we started milling some of them, but it is labor intensive. They're kind of hard to make. We certainly struggle with adjusting and polishing. Sometimes we had to make them a little bulky to not be easy to break. And repairability, all this stuff, and then how long they last. But surprisingly, they've been around for a minute, and we're pretty happy with flexibles. But we've all wanted, something we could print, and we now have BioArch. And I've been lucky; they sent me a bottle of this to test about 8 months ago, and I've probably got about 30 something cases in, and guys, I like it. It's great. And when you can pour open a bottle and put it in the printer and print it and you're done. And I'm going to show you a couple of things, but overall, we got to design a flexible partial. We got to nest it, support it. We're going to print it and clean it. We're going to smooth those supports. We're going to make sure the teeth fit well. Then we're going to seat those teeth in. We're going to tack them down. Then we're going to cure it and smooth and polish. Sound familiar? It's kind of like we just talked about. The only difference here with the flexible is that I'm not going to use that glaze in this workflow. And the reason is, I'm dealing with a flexible polymer resin. If I put a glaze that soaks in and I cure it, then I'm changing the physical properties of that flexibility and may make it stiffer or more brittle, or at least the glaze might crack. I don't know. So it's better to not use it. We even use the actual base resin, the flexible BioArch resin, as the bonder, as you'll see. So in designing, I've designed them both. The top screen is in the partial denture module, and the bottom screen is in, sorry, I'm having trouble with my clicker today. The top screen is in the partial denture module, and the bottom in the full denture module. And I prefer to design these in the full denture module. There's a couple of tools in the partial module that I like, but like the cloning tooth, like that one. But overall, I found myself much more efficient in the denture module. And the gingival tools are better. It's easy to get the gingiva. And so my go-to is to use the three-shape denture module to do all the flexible design in, and exocad in some cases. I'll show you one of those in a second too. Print these on a Sega. Either put like these bases were printed on the Ultra, and this was the first batch I ever did. So I wanted to play around with different angles, you know, uh, intaglio side down, heel to platform, flat. You can see here that I was even putting these posts in the pockets, maybe to get more support. I don't do that anymore. Don't need it. And today I've settled on that, what I've already said, somewhere for partials around 45 to 80 degrees to the lingual. And I'm supporting around the border for the most part, but I will put some supports on a clasp if they're small. And then teeth, same thing. Some people like to do it occlusal to platform, some basal. I'm still a fan of the basal to platform, and I'm still tilting those teeth at about 30 degrees for the posterior teeth and 45 for anterior teeth. And the Sega pretty much puts the supports on as it like. They're easy to get off. So then we print. So we're printing the Rodin BioArch flexible material here for a real case and print the teeth, and we're ready to assemble. So after design, printing is simple. Hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, so it prints pretty quick. I'm going to take them out, going to clean them, IPA, then I'm going to start smoothing all the supports down and get it seated. Now, also notice that I'm leaving the T-bars. In the flexible partials or partials in general, I'm always leaving the T-bars, no matter how I'm curing them. Just more chance for this to distort. I like to use this little syringe to pull up some of the actual printable resin. That's my bonding material. Seat the tooth, clean the excess, and then tack that tooth down. Did that on these all three, and then they're going into the auto flash. And, they are also 4,500 cycles. Take them out. Then I'll take the T-bar off because it's fully cured now. And, smooth the supports and then polish. This is what I like to use. That is a Wagner Panther wheel, kind of a Muslim with particles embedded in it, and then a buff wheel after that. But they're pretty easy to polish. The Titan's really easy to polish, especially with that Panther wheel. But others work. I've used the Harvest material, polishing compound. It's polishing. It's a polymer resin, so pretty easy to polish as opposed to some of the previous stuff we've used. So here's a case that we did. Guy had a metal partial, was tired of the aesthetics, and so in exocad we designed the flexible partial. And I like some of the tools in exocad, like how thick or thin my borders are with these color mapping. But same concept, where you want it, where you want the clasp, get your thickness right, separate the teeth. And then, now you got STLs you can go print. And, here we are at delivery. Why did I print two? Well, because I can. And I say, you know what? Just in case, right? Maybe we break something trying to seat it, or if not, then now he's got a backup. And how much effort and time and materials do I have in that second one? Not a lot. So it's just something I always do is that when I'm printing one appliance, I'll always just print two. And that way, even if the dentist says, hey, I'm not giving both those to the patient, he's only paying me for one. We'll put it in his chart and hang on to it. If he ever calls you and say he broke it, you got your ready-made backup. But this guy's had this in for about 3 months, and he absolutely loves it. Aesthetics, what he wanted, lightweight, chews with it good, stability's good, retention's good. So happy camper. So that's the BioArch, and it's part of this whole family. And when you look again at this, they've when they engineer something, they're thinking about all their other stuff, and they want to make sure everything works together. And I think they've done a fantastic job of that. And it is one of my go-to removable workflow systems. So I do have a folder for you if you want to scan that QR code, and there's some handouts in there that basically can connect you to Pac-Dent, tell you a little bit more about the system. That palette guide may even be in there. So take a look at that if you're interested. Reach out to me if you want some individual training. Call, of course, the guys at Zon to order your stuff. And we want to appreciate you again. So I left about 10 minutes pretty good. It's the first time I've did this one. So
No, you did great. So I'm just gonna launch like another one of these polls. So it's saying, would you like to add Pac-Dent Rodin resins to your 3D printing workflow? If you wouldn't mind just answering that, then there'll be another one on whether or not you want to take advantage of this special promotion that they have. And what I believe is, once I speak to you, we place the order if you want to for the Titan, and then the specific invoice that you receive from us gets emailed over to Pac-Dent, and they will supply you with all of the free items. So there's that.
Brand, how
Um,
much is Titan? What's the retail?
I believe the retail is close to 1,300. I think it's 1,285 or something like that.
And that's 1.2 kilograms. So it's a
That's the
little more than a
1.2.
liter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here is that limited time offer. Like I said, it's from today through February 4th. I will be receiving, all of your information, I would say by sometime tomorrow, and I'll be able to give you a call on it, and you just let me know what you want to do.
For somebody may be thinking this, out of a 1.2 kilogram bottle, how many full arches of denture teeth or all necks will I get out of there? It's somewhere between 120 and 140, depending on.
Wow,
So
an awful lot. So that's fantastic. So I'll end this poll now. And for your future printing workflow, if anybody's interested in a 3D printer or adding another one, just let me know and we can work out a special price. We do have our Lab Day Chicago, coming up, and Jimmy is going to be definitely one of our speakers there. So we're so excited to have you back in the glass classroom and in Grand Ballroom E and F. So Jimmy's going to be speaking to you a little bit more, about these resins, as well as Paolo Lubrano is going to be demonstrating a table clinic on characterization with the Palette 2.0. So take a look
cool.
at LMT, that, their website, to look at days and times and sign up so that you can come and visit us there. And like I said, we are going to have 3 days of really great education coming to you. So excited for that. And before you know it, Jimmy, it's going to be here and we'll be over there. So if you're going to be heading over to Chicago, please
Yep.
visit us and,
I'm glad you
have
I'm
some
glad
fun
you
with
brought
us.
that up. I'll be in the Zon Ballroom on Thursday, it's I'll be talking specifically focused on the BioArch flexible partial, and I'm going to talk about my experience, my opinions, my workflow, everything just on the BioArch.
And
But
Jimmy, will you have some samples there for everybody to see? Because that's going to be
yep, I
cool.
will.
Pass those
Yep,
around and
yep,
yeah,
yep. We're going to have plenty of cases people can pick up and bend and try to break, and it's okay.
it'll be fun.
Also going to be in now. Pac Dent has a room on Friday, and I will be in that room for over 2 hours, around 2 hours, and it's a cool room. They've got several stations. There's four stations that you can come around and get direct one-on-one interaction with me and three other really smart people. I don't know how I got in this group, but I'll be in there and I'll be talking about my workflows and doing demos, directly, kind of more of an intimate thing instead of just sitting in a classroom. I think it's very cool what they've done on that room. So they may want to talk about it if anybody from Pac-Dent's here.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll have Paolo also and Jorge Alegre going down into the Zon booth downstairs in the pit. So they'll be down there as well to discuss all of these materials with you. And Jorge Alegre is also going to be doing a lecture on all of these products and workflows in Spanish. So that should be pretty interesting and exciting for the, customers that need a little bit of help with understanding. So that'll be, a great lecture that you'll have for Pac-Dent as well as Zon in the Zon Ballroom with Jorge Alegre. So we do have 7 questions, maybe more, Jimmy. And the
Okay.
first one is from Darius, and he wants to know, what denture-based thickness do you recommend for immediate dentures?
I might thicken those up a little bit more if I think it's going to be tight due to the overclosure or whatnot. But general rule of thumb is the same as before, around 2.5 for uppers and 3.5 for lowers.
And the next one is, can this resin work in a Formlabs printer?
This resin, the denture resin or the BioArch, I don't think so.
I
Um,
think validation is coming soon. If I remember correctly, I believe there'll be quite a few more. I don't know about the flexible at this time, the BioArcs, but I'm pretty sure that if you have open material mode on the Formlabs printer, that there are validations there.
okay,
So I
good.
think the BioArch is coming. The lifespan of BioArch. Do you know what the lifespan is once you open the bottle, for Darius?
A lifespan when you open a bottle. No, most polymers, once a bottle's open, um, it's either 2 to 3 years. But if you pour it out of the bottle into a printer tray and leave it in that printer tray and not pour it back into the bottle, the lifespan shortens. The more oxygen exposure, even if you get people protected from light, it definitely shortens the lifespan. Rule of thumb is, well, I don't print every day. If I was printing every day, I'm sure my resins would be in the tray more often. Most of the time, I'm printing occasionally, so I print and then I filter it and pour it back in the bottle because I want to make it last longer. If the question was the lifespan in the mouth, it's too soon to tell. It tested for, anti-fracture, fracture resistance, resistance to fracture. All those things look good. Is it as good as what we're used to, like with the Duraflexes or Valplasts of this world? Maybe not, but maybe. I think it's Look, I think, in my opinion, looking at them, playing with them, cutting on them, it's easily a 2 to 3 year appliance, and it could surprise me and be a whole lot longer. But it's very economical, and printing another one's not a big deal.
Tony wants to know, what about repair and a hard reline?
All right, we're talking about the denture-based material. Cold cure acrylic does stick to it, so you can repair it traditionally. I usually don't. If I have time, I'll ask the doc if I have a day or two, I'll print a new denture. I'll redesign it a little bit where it broke and then print a new denture. But if it has to be repaired in a couple hours, you can use a pressure pot and cold cure acrylic. If it's the flexibles, they're not repairable. None of them ever have been. I don't imagine any of them ever will be.
What printers are the Rodin resins validated for?
Now that varies on the resin. A couple of them are validated in the carbon. All of them are validated in the Stegall line. Some are validated in Form Labs. I just don't know which ones right now. If there's anybody from Pac-Dent that wants to help with that, that'd be great.
And we can also, if you'd like to take your email or send me an email, you can do that as well, and I could work that up for you and send that over to you. Absolutely. Darius wants to know, possible to repair BioArch if glass break?
I'm not even going to try it. Nope, I don't think it'll work. And they didn't
Just
give us any
reprint,
protocol for it.
right?
So reprint.
Is it required to cure with nitrogen? Yang Choi wants to know about that.
No, but it's always better.
So can the RPT material be cured in the Dreve PCU LED like the denture-based material? Which shade of the 2.0 would you say most closely represents Lucitone Digital Print Original Pink? So there's two questions
They call
there.
it classic, I think, or
Mhm.
original, but it was matched to the Dentsply original. And yeah,
And what
you
about
can
the
use the other,
Dreve?
you can use the Dravet. Yep.
Does the Titan resin also come in a zero point 0.5 kilogram bottle? That I'm not
Mm.
sure about.
It does. It comes in a half-liter bottle, and so yeah, there are some shades that I have are in the small bottle because, like for my Crown and Bridge temps, got an odd shade. I just have that little small bottle and put it in the small Crown and Bridge kit for a Sega. So it only takes a little bit of resin.
Should BioArch also be validated for Form Cure too?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because the chemistry is very similar. I'd want to confirm that with Pac-Dent, but I think so. Yeah.
And Lydia wants to know, what resin are you using for flexible partials?
Gonna get me in trouble here because I've used three, I'm primarily using the BioArch right now, mainly because my access to a carbon printer is not easy. Right, I have to go use a friend's or go to Dent Supply headquarters, and so theirs is good. I've tested another one from Detax, and it's good, but the Pac-Dent right now is kind of my go-to. And I'll tell you this: that my dentist and his son dentist in the practice, they like it the best. That's their favorite by far, and that's what, for all theirs they use.
So
Great
Joe wants
question
to,
here. I see it.
yeah,
When is it available to the public? They are formally rolling it out in Chicago. I think you might be able to order it now. Is that right, Fran? Can they order it today?
I think so. I
But
think so.
official rollout is in Chicago. But I think they have it ready, and I think it's in inventory.
Can you mix the denture-based resin to get a custom color?
I've asked this question to R&D engineers and chemical engineers that develop this stuff, and every one of them has said, no, don't do it because you'll never get the chemistry right. And there's some things that might be in one shade, it's not in another. And